Hello everybody, Jimmy Videle-Veganic grower here with you for a veganic farm tour on June 12th, 2022. What are the state of the gardens now? Well, here we're in one of our perennial fields where we have some perennial walking onions that are starting to flower. I'm sorry, not walking onions, Japanese onions, hishiko, that are starting to flower. Here we have Sweet Rocket, which we just established last year, which we didn't even know would be as pretty as it is, but it's just absolutely gorgeous with its purple flowers. And you will see we have a vast amount of wild milkweed, or Asclepiad, that's growing everywhere. And we do this on purpose because we have quite a population of monarch butterflies that will be migrating up here soon. And they like to, well, eat the Asclepiad or the milkweed, and also they like to lay their eggs so the caterpillars can then hatch and become, they can also feed on that for the next generations, which will end up flying back down south. So we let this go as a benefit to them because, like all veganic growers do, we try to grow not just for the human species, but for all species. As you can see, it's just a really amazing year for these beautiful swallow-tailed butterflies as well, and they adore the hishiko onion flowers. Pretty cool. I've never seen such a number here as we have this year, which is very neat. So continuing on, as you can see in between the gardens, we have these green strips, and I will go ahead and cut these about once a month with a weed eater when they get too tall, and we'll use that green native flora, which is kind of a mixture of yarrow and clover and daisies and couch grass, that we'll end up using that to make our compost as the green material for our compost. And you can see as things go, the garlic is growing vibrantly, the green onions are growing vibrantly, the onions, the bulbing onions, red and yellow and white, are all starting to grow and take off. The leeks as well as the potato field. This is one of our staples that we grow here at La Ferme de l'Aube. We grow potatoes, grow dry beans, we grow onions, we grow carrots and beets and rutabaga, things that we can store for the winter time, and exceptionally important. You'll see I'm walking in the path right now and it seems pretty damp down. We've had a lot of rain, but if you look at the beds, they're all raised up. In the potatoes case, they're raised up almost a foot, and in the leeks case, they're raised up about 6 inches, and this is all on purpose. We create permanent beds so that when we do amend our soils, we're only doing it in the garden beds, not in the paths, because the paths, we don't grow the culture. That's where we walk. So also you'll notice that when where I'm walking downhill, and when it rains really hard, the water then collects in these green strips, as well as some of the compost, unfortunately, that erodes off the beds, but it gets caught. And then it becomes very lush, and when I cut that and put that in the compost, well, we're just recycling it back into the system because we try to recycle everything as much as possible. There are screens on the brassicas. We have kale growing in here. We'll see if you can see it. She's growing pretty nice. We have cabbages. They're growing nice too, as well as broccoli. The screens are used to keep the cabbage worms off, as well as to block the winds and the heavy downpours of rain. So when it rains really heavy like it has been, we use the screens, and that'll block some of the pelting rain that comes in. So instead of damaging the leaves, it kind of just bounces off and then filters in the rainwater inside. Fennel growing vibrantly. The lettuce is growing vibrantly as well. We have myrrh, which is a green leaf. We have pierrot here, which is a butterhead. Green star, which is another green leaf. And our favorite lettuce, magenta, which seems to do well whether it rains like this year or is dry like the 2 previous years. So we grow about 11 or 12 different kinds of lettuces for head, and it's amazing. We sell it all, we eat it all. It's one of our best and favorite crops for our customers, for us as well. More green strips, and here's an interesting field. This is field 5, and this year it was so wet that it is basically unplantable. I couldn't get in. It's muddy, it's a mess. I don't think it'll dry out until the end of July, so we pulled this entire field out of the rotation. So instead, I let the native flora go, and I also planted cover crops this year here, which will also be used to make compost. So we planted 4 beds of permanent alfalfa and 5 beds of sorghum Sudan grass, which is an annual, as well as oats, which we will cut but also let it go to groat, which we're going to save and then make for our tea, which is really good for sleep disorders, and so for calming. There you go. Our tunnels down here, they were just planted about 10 days ago, and as you can see as I'm walking, there's just puddles of rain. We just keep getting rain. It just doesn't stop. And in here we have our heirloom tomatoes and our peppers, and they're struggling. It's been not that warm. Finally, we're getting a little sun today. We had a little yesterday, but it's been basically out of 10 days, it's been maybe 8 days of no sun at all and 5 days of rain. So they are covered in the tunnel, but they just haven't quite rooted in yet. But they're going to be just fine. They're going to make it. Going along, we do have plastics that we cover beds that we're going to plant later in the season. We do that to help us with weeding because it's just Melanie and I here in the fields. So we need to have a little bit of help with taking care of the weeds. And as you can see, it's not weeds, it's native flora. But as you can see, this is 6 beds of what was once strawberries. But the native flora became so intense that we just kind of let it go. But we learned something interesting this year. If you look, the strawberries are also coming. You can see them in there. They're not turning red yet. That's going to be in a few weeks. But I don't think I've ever seen so many strawberries in any one of our fields. And because the strawberries are trying to compete with the native flora, which is perennial, and them themselves are a perennial, they are growing taller than I've ever seen them grow. They're putting their strawberries up instead of dropping them down. Pretty cool stuff. The peas, I just restaked them a little, or retwined them a little bit more. They're starting to grow, but everything has that yellowish, kind of lightish tint, and that's gonna happen when it gets too much water and not enough sun. So, but it's coming. Everything's coming into the carrot field here and to the beets. More carrots, more beets, Swiss chard, and very interesting and cool, the sweet corn, which is another one of our staples. We freeze it, we eat it like crazy during the season. It's one of our favorite crops, and we just transplanted this yesterday. It's looking very, very, very nice. So there you go. That is the Veganic farm tour. Up ahead there, you see more. This is row cover that actually has cucurbits in it. So all of our winter squash we just planted 3 days ago, and our first round of zucchini, which we planted yesterday. So again, there you go. That's the Veganic farm tour for June 12th, 2022. It's my hope to be able to do this maybe in another month so you can see the status of things then as more things grow and more diversity arrives and more diversity of butterflies and birds in the background. So there you go. Have a great weekend and rest of your day.